All right, so it's that time again. We're going to do an update on Richard Allen. There's a lot of things that are happening in this case right now, and I definitely want to get this video out to you as quickly as possible so we can kind of peel back what really happened yesterday when Richard Allen and team went before the judge. 136-page memorandum. That is absolute insanity. There was 92 different reasons the defense laid out that Richard Allen could not be guilty of this crime. And they really kind of hit with 60 pages. They go after Odinism and say that this was a ritualistic killing. Now, I'm not going to focus in on that part. I think that's a video within itself, and that might be a video that we bring to you in a week or two, depending on what we find out from that. What I really want to hit on is some of the updates that have happened since my previous video. On April 3rd of this year, 2023, it has been stated that there's a transcription that shows when Richard Allen was speaking with his wife that he had confessed to the murder of Libby and Abby several times before his wife had hung up. Now, what's interesting about this is that the judge unsealed this, and it is a transcript, but keep in mind, this is literally during a time where he's speaking with his wife after spending time in jail. Now, before we go too far down that road, because I know a lot of people are on each side of the fence with Richard Allen, I would say it's a pretty close 50-50 split, even in the comments, who find him innocent and some who find him guilty. And what I found with a couple of my previous videos was that people are very passionate about that, okay? So let me state a few facts about this first and the whole confession scene so that way we can get it all out there. So Richard Allen is in jail right now. It doesn't look like it's going very well. You see that he loses a lot of weight and just doesn't seem like he's doing very well in prison. His lawyers have asked that he be moved to a different prison due to his own safety. Now, is that a contributing factor to the confession that he made with his wife? Was Richard Allen very emotional, and is he trying to get out of prison because he's scared for his own safety and he's willing to do anything possible to get out of that? We have seen that in the past where suspects do come forward and they give a false confession to get out of whatever stressful situation they are currently in. So I'm asking you, do you think that this confession was directly related to the stress that Richard Allen is feeling in jail? Or do you feel like this is an actual confession and that he is confessing to the murder of Libby and Abby? Now, my opinion on that, I think he's having a conversation. I think he's trying to get it off of his soul. He's saying to his wife that, yes, I did commit these crimes, and ultimately I'm going to be found guilty for these crimes. Again, that's just speculation and opinion, but that does put me on the 50% side that thinks that he is guilty of this crime. And only for that reason, okay? Prior to Richard Allen actually having that confession, even knowing some of the things that I do know from a stressful environment situation, a big reason for this is the confession to his wife for me. I know that there could be some stress and maybe he is scared, and if that comes out, I will definitely retract that statement. But that is a damning statement when he says it and when he's saying it to his wife. I don't know why he's saying it. If it is stress related and it is a false confession, then yes, I will definitely retract my statement. Now again, it's just speculation. I don't have any more details than you have, and really, until it goes to court, we don't know everything that's going to be presented in court anyways. There's a lot of stuff in the arrest affidavit. You've seen me go over that in some of the live streams, word for word with the arrest affidavit, so I know that there's things in there. I'm not going to rehash that in this video because I do want to get to a few things, but for you, if you want to leave a comment down below, tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why you think Richard Allen's still going to be innocent, and why does this confession make no sense whatsoever? Or if you align and say that Richard Allen is guilty, tell me, is it because of this confession, or is there something else that stood out to you that says, hey, it's Richard Allen all day? A couple other things that I want to hit is obviously Kegan Kline. Kegan Kline still stands out to me. I know that he's never formally been accused of being a suspect in this crime, but just the fact that Kegan Kline had reached out and made a fake profile and had contact with one of the girls and then goes on to say that his dad had access to his account So he doesn't know if that account was being used to talk to one of the girls or not. That to me, it could be coincidence, but just like we saw in some of the previous cases, specifically the one with Aaron Patterson, and the detective says, I don't believe in coincidences. That's where I'm standing right now. I don't know if there's a coincidence there. I don't know if Kegan Kline had something to do with it with Richard Allen, or if Richard Allen even knew Kegan Kline per se. You know, obviously they live in a small town and probably have talked to each other at some point, but what I mean is, were they close enough that they were going to commit a crime like this together and lure these girls in? Another thing that stands out to me is, how did they know that these girls were going to be on the trail that day? Obviously, there was some communication that was going back and forth on social media. So that would lead me to believe that Kegan Kline had something to do with this somehow. I just don't know how. So that's out there as well. So I want to make sure that we put that in there, especially since so many people are passionate about this case. I want to make sure we don't leave any details out. So that gets me to the point I want to make right now. And we're going to get into a boring part in just a moment. So the lawyers go in. They essentially lay out 130 plus pages in this memorandum. In this memorandum, there's also a Frank motion that appears. Now, this is the piece that's most interesting to me right now and what happened earlier this week. The Frank motion is basically saying that the search was executed illegally, and if you remove the search, anything that was found during that search would also be rendered illegal to proceed or to present in court as evidence. Basically, what that says is, if this motion goes through and the judge agrees with the defense, anything that was found during that search or anything that was subsequent to that search would ultimately have to be thrown out and could not be used against Richard Allen. This is monstrous. This is huge. This is even bigger than what we're hearing with the ritualistic killings, the Odinism, and all of that stuff that the defense presented, and even the 92 different reasons why Richard Allen did not commit this crime that they presented. This is the piece right here that could change everything. Now, keep in mind, defense attorneys try this all the time, but there is some compelling things that are in this document that I want to go over that could get this overturned and could ultimately have Richard Allen walk free. So I'm going to go word for word. Not the most fun thing, but listen to it all the way through. I'm going to have a couple questions for you at the end, and then we will decide where do we stand. All right, so motion for Frank's hearing. Comes now the accused Richard Allen by and through counsel Andrew J. Baldwin and Brad Rossi, and files his request for this court to set a Frank's hearing. In support of said motion, defense counsel states the following. 1. On October 13th, 2022, following a roughly an hour and a half hour interview with the accused Richard Rick Allen, Detective Tony Liggett signed an affidavit for search warrant, which was a 5-page document detailing information concerning said interview with Rick Allen, as well as information flowing from a 5.5-year investigation into the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. 2. The affidavit for search warrant was also approved by a secondary signature, Prosecutor Nicholas C. McClelland, before being sent to Judge Benjamin Diner for further review. 3. The purpose of said affidavit for search warrant was to provide a sworn statement containing information from that lengthy investigation that would convince Judge Benjamin Diner that a reasonable belief existed that evidence of said murder would be found in Rick Allen's home and vehicles. 4. The affidavit for search warrant was apparently reviewed by Judge Diner, who then signed a search warrant for Rick's home and vehicles at 6:37 p.m. on October 13th, 2023. 5. That on its face and within the four corners of the document, the affidavit for search warrant was defective and it did not provide the type of information that would cause any reasonable person to believe that it was more likely than not that evidence of the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German would be found in Rick Allen's home or vehicles, especially more than 5 years after they were murdered. 6. Because on its face and within four corners of the affidavit for search warrant, no reasonable person would believe that it was more than likely not the evidence of the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German would be found in Rick Allen's home or vehicle, Judge Diner erred in signing said search warrant. Therefore, any search of Rick's home and vehicle was illegal. Therefore, all items seized pursuant to said legal search should be suppressed. 7. However, making matters far worse, Detective Tony Liggett chose to hide crucial information from the search warrant affidavit and provided false statements in said search warrant affidavit. 8. The defense is required to make a substantial preliminary showing that omitted or false statements were made knowingly or intentionally or with reckless disregard. And if the trial court concludes that said omitted facts or false statements were necessary for the finding of probable cause, then the trial court should set a hearing on defendant's request. Frank versus Delaware, 438 U.S. 154. 9. Furthermore, Indiana courts have held that when a material information is omitted from a probable cause affidavit, such omissions will invalidate a warrant if the police omitted facts with the intent to make the affidavit misleading or with reckless disregard for whether it would be misleading, and the affidavit supplemented with the omitted information would have been insufficient to support a finding of probable cause. Ware versus State. 10. Rather than hiding said information from Judge Diner, had Liggett actually included said information with the affidavit for the search warrant, then Judge Diner would not have signed said warrant, as the hidden and false information was the type of information that any reasonable person would have known was the kind of thing the judge would wish to know. Girth versus State. The accused is filing contemporaneously herewith his memorandum in support of his motion for Frank's hearing, which will detail the long list of specific information in the search warrant affidavit that Liggett chose to hide from Judge Diner, as well as information contained with the search warrant affidavit that flat out falsehoods that Liggett swore and affirmed were true. 12. The defense would ask the court to incorporate the attached memorandum into its motion. And 13, once the court has reviewed the motion for Frank's hearing, the memorandum in support of the motion for Frank's hearing, as well as all of the attached exhibits that support the memorandum, Richard Allen, by and through counsel, would ask this court to set this matter for a hearing in which the defense will be arguing that the search warrant was illegal. Then the defense will be requesting the court to suppress all fruits of the illegal search. Wow, that is a lot of information. So basically what that's saying is the defense is saying that the investigator left out information that ultimately would have led a judge to believe that a search warrant wasn't, and I'm going to say that again, was not warranted in this case. Now, if this does come through and it ends up in the favor of the defense, this could blow the case out of the water, and I think that would leave the prosecution hanging. Now, we don't know everything that the prosecution has at this point either. So would the prosecution continue to move forward, or would they scale back and ultimately not go to trial because of this illegal search, quote unquote? Now, I'm going to ask you folks, you know where I stand based off of what I read before the Franks motion. Now, I'm on the side that believes Richard Allen is guilty. Now, there's a lot of things that point his way. I think the picture, very much shows that it's a very similar body build to Richard Allen, but that's not the reason why I think he's guilty. They found the bullet of Richard Allen close to where the girls had passed. Again, that's not the reason why I think he's guilty. He could have walked through there at any point in time, prior or even after, and the bullet might have been there. I don't know. I wasn't an investigator, but the shell casing wasn't spent. Okay. What really does it for me is the fact that he confesses to his wife. Now, if that gets thrown out of court, I think as a juror, you might end up finding him not guilty. But for me, that is smoking gun evidence. Again, if it is ever pointed out that he did this because of the stress or he was under some sort of duress, then maybe I will change my mind. But based off of everything that we talked about and the Franks motion, what do you think? Do you think Richard Allen's going to be found guilty? Do you think Richard Allen was the one that committed this crime and may be found not guilty based off some of the evidence that we're seeing? Or do you think that Richard Allen was guilty and will be found guilty? And lastly, do you think Richard Allen was not guilty and will be found not guilty? So I know that's a lot of stuff going on there. If you've been with me for this long, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button down below. Leave that comment. This case gets people riled up, so there is a lot of comments. I do just encourage you, please keep it to the facts. Keep the personal attacks out. I think the last video I did was the first time I really got some personal attacks, so I want to keep those out. But on that note, I'm going to bring you another video tomorrow, and that's going to be on Kevin Franke. I'm going to record that one today as well. So you get a lot of videos this week. If you like them, make sure you let me know what you liked about them and what you didn't. On that note, have a wonderful day, everybody. I will talk to you later this week.